friends, welcome back to my channel. You are watching My Peculiar Exotics. Today I'm going to go over how to take care of tarantulas in the wintertime. It is that time of year, you guys, when we are turning on the heat and the air is getting extremely dry, and this is when we can start losing tarantulas, and people have lost tarantulas during the wintertime due to lack of humidity, moisture, and hydration. So in this video, I'm going to tell you guys exactly how to prevent that from happening and the steps that you can take to take care of your tarantulas this winter. So thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video, and let's get into it. The first thing that I wanted to discuss today was watering and what to do for when it comes to wintertime. Now, if you are already watering your tarantulas once a week, which you should be at least, I would consider adding an additional watering day to your schedule to make sure that your enclosures are staying nice and moist when it is becoming very, very dry in the house. This is especially important with slings. They are very prone to drying out very quickly, so if you are not keeping them hydrated and misting them, with also adding the heat and turning the heat up, which dries the air out more, then you might start seeing some fatalities. So it's really important that we are adding another additional watering day, because everything is much drier than it normally is, and that dries the insides of the enclosures out much more quickly than it would per se during the summertime. The second thing that I would like to talk about is heat, and make sure you are turning the heat up during the winter time. It can get very cold outside, and that temperature can easily be the temperature of your home. So I suggest presetting the temperature to what you would like to see it be at when you're gone during the day or when you're going to bed at night. During the day, I keep my animal room at 75 to 78 degrees during the day, and then at night it falls to the lowest of 69, sometimes 68 degrees. So adding that additional heat, it will make sure that your spiders are staying nice and warm. If you're comfortable, that's not always the case, because some of us like it much cooler in the rooms that we're actually staying in. So if those rooms are like 60 degrees, you might want to consider moving your tarantula or tarantulas into a different room that you can control the temperature better. And that kind of follows into the next thing that I wanted to talk about, which was don't let the temps fall below, I would say, 55 degrees for all of your tarantulas. If you're keeping slings, I would not let them fall anywhere below 70 degrees. Some people can keep them at 65. I don't let mine fall below 70 degrees, and I've never had an issue. But you do want to keep your slings warm, so if you don't have an entire room that is designated for taking care of your animals, then I would suggest making some adjustments to make sure that your spider is getting the proper heating and staying nice and warm during the winter time. And you especially want to make sure that your enclosures aren't anywhere that's like in a doorway, in a window that's open. You don't want your enclosures near areas that could have really cold drafts coming through them, because this can stress your tarantula out with the fluctuations of the temperature constantly going up and down. And so if you do have like one or a couple tarantulas that are living in your living room per se, and they are like in the doorway, I would suggest putting them somewhere else where they're not going to get that really cold drafty air when you open the door. Because I mean, you probably don't like feeling that draft, and they probably don't either, and they don't really understand what's going on, so that stresses them out. Another thing that's really important that comes in hand with temperature, and especially when it comes to tarantulas, is making sure that your humidity is at proper levels during the winter time as well. Everything can be very dried out. It can, like the air in your house, when you're turning the heater up, it can dry the air out very quickly. And that can even leave your house very dry, very low humidity. And if you're getting into the single digits, that is scary and you need to do something about it. You can up the humidity in your house by one, investing in a humidifier, which you could just add to the room. You can also run the shower. Like my pet room is connected to my bathroom, which whenever we use the bathroom and we run the shower, that humidity comes into the room, and there's always a consistent percentage of 30 to 50% humidity in this room at all times. Now, I've never had any fatalities due to this, and so the more moisture the better, but don't make it sopping wet. So if it's like above 60, I know like the condensation starts building up on the walls, so you know that 30 to 50% range is really, really good to look at. And the way I keep check of that is I have a hygrometer in my reptile room that shows me everything that I need to know about what's going on in here. It tells me the temperature and it tells me the humidity, which, as you guys can see, the humidity is pretty high right now, but it's kind of just because like I'm touching it, but usually it's about 30 to 50% humidity. And the humidity is really important because if your spiders are bone dry, they will physically dry out and die. And then also they will have a really hard time molting, and that can also lead to stuck molts, bad molts, molts where they like can't finish peeling themselves out of because they're not moist enough. There's a lot of factors that can play into it. But humidity and temperature are super important. Now, I do know that some people can keep their tarantulas at like 70 degrees. That's just not me. I like to keep everybody nice and warm, especially during the winter time. I've never had an issue. I've had my room up to about 80 degrees sometimes, and that was before I had Jaime, so I was keeping my geckos even hot as well, but they seem to be completely fine. After a while, I slowly increased everything, and yeah. And like I said, just making sure that we're keeping our tarantulas and our animals in places that aren't super drafty, where you have a window open and that cold draft is like moving through the house and blowing on enclosures. If you're going to open a window, I do suggest just like cracking it and then pulling down the blinds so that like there's not like a full draft coming through. And then I don't even open the window right now. Like there's a window right behind me and I haven't opened it since it got cold outside because I am afraid that super cold air, because I mean it's getting like 30 degrees out and as low as 15 degrees right now. So I don't want to shock my animals by opening up that window and allowing that cold draft. So I open up a window that's all the way across at the other end of the house and then allow that airflow to just kind of like move through. But that is just some of the tips that I've learned from keeping tarantulas. And in addition, a few different heat sources that you can use that, this is a question because, and this is all going to depend on the size of your collection. Now, if you have a smaller collection, you can get away with using like a little heater, like a little space heater. That will be ample enough to heat the small space that you're probably keeping your tarantulas in. And also, you do want to make sure that you are watering extra, especially when you're adding an additional heat source. That was something like I personally water my tarantulas twice a week, year round, just for the fact that it's really dry where I live and I used to use a space heater a lot. Now when it comes to summertime, and since I've moved all of my animals into a bigger room, I won't have to spend so much, I won't have to heat the room as much, so I can ease up on the watering. But for right now, since I had them in a room where there was a heater that was heating it and sucking a lot of the moisture out, and now there's a vent, a huge vent behind me that pumps out tons of heat and it dries out the air. So, and it's like right next to everybody, but it doesn't seem to bother the tarantulas. It doesn't cook them or anything. But yeah, just making sure that you are adjusting your care routines to weather changes, room changes, everything. It's just really important that we keep the tarantulas moist and we keep them nice and warm this winter. If you want, you can keep them cold, but I really don't suggest doing that. I mean, I think they'll be okay if you keep them cold for a few days, but oh, I was gonna give you guys suggestions on heaters. My bad. But yeah, for like this big room, I use like this big heat vent behind me to heat everything up, as opposed to a heater, because the heater would be way more expensive to run all the time, and it would, I liked it because I could set it. It had like a digital thing, so I could set the temperature, and so I'd only like keep it around that temperature. Where now I just have like this round thermostat, and I have to, it doesn't have exact numbers, and I have to play around with it, and I have to make sure it's not going to be too hot in this room when the weather outside is changing and all of that. So it can be kind of a headache. There's things that you can buy to preset temperatures and install in your house to keep the temperatures in check, but I personally, I am checking my temps by myself all day using my hygrometer. I'm home a lot, so I can do that, but if I wasn't home, I would probably invest in some other way to heat. But I haven't been home either, so, and everything's been fine. So just make sure that you're not leaving anything on that can cook your pets. You're not cranking the heat up and it's going over what you planned it to be. Just keep an eye on all that stuff. It's kind of a headache at first, but once you get used to it, it's really easy and you don't have to think about it so much. But I don't have the money to install a huge internal heating and cooling system in here, so that's just how I do it. I water my tarantulas twice a week to make sure they keep moist, making sure I check water bowls, making sure they're full. That's another thing I want to mention is keeping water bowls in your tarantulas enclosures. If you don't do it during the summertime, do it during the wintertime, because it is a good way to make sure that your tarantulas are getting the humidity that they need and also the hydration that they need to live long and healthy lives. So that is all I got to say about keeping tarantulas in the wintertime. Please let me know some of the struggles that you guys experience keeping tarantulas in the wintertime. Personally, I haven't ran into too many issues, just the fact that I just had to adjust to using the thermostat with this big room and learning to how it heats and cools and what to expect the temperature to be. It's a lot, and I'm not trying to confuse anybody, but if you have a big collection, that's what it's like. If you have fewer tarantulas, it's not as complicated, but it just depends on how many you have. But that is just my advice to make sure that you guys aren't losing your tarantulas over the winter time. This is the time of year when people do run into issues, especially with humidity and temperatures. And so that's what I gotta say about it. So I hope this helps, and I hope you guys enjoyed this video as well. Please don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Also, I would like to thank my newest Patreon member, BH3D. Thank you so much for signing up for my Patreon and supporting my channel that way. I really appreciate it. Guys, I have really big plans in the future for my business and for my peculiar exotics altogether. I plan to start breeding tarantulas next year and so much more. So remember, friends, frogs, lizards, snakes, and spiders are your friends. Let's make a better world for them. Thank you so much for watching. Have a blessed week. Bye-bye.